If you're an entrepreneur, you've taken big risks, created many jobs, and devoted yourself to your business. When it comes to building your succession and transition plan, who should be involved? What are the steps along the way? Welcome to Finish Big, the podcast with Mark Dorman, sponsored by Succession Plus, inspired by the book Finish Big, How Great Entrepreneurs Exit Their Companies on Top, by the noted entrepreneurial author Bo Burlingham. In this podcast, we share success stories along with our expertise and knowledge about what will probably be the largest financial transaction of your life. Now, on to the show.
Hello, this is Mark Dorman, your host of the Finish Big podcast. Today, I've got a special guest, a gentleman who's become a friend of mine over the last year, Steve Hopkins with Charter BTA. Steve, welcome to Finish Big, the podcast.
Oh, thank you, Mark. Great to be here.
Great. So let's just dig right in, Steve. We've got about a half hour, but we've got a lot to unpack. You and I obviously have a very long and sustained passion for assisting business owners. As I mentioned, we've gotten to know each other over the last year. You're up in Lake Oswego, Portland. So let's start with a little bit of your background, how long you've been in exit planning, and maybe a little bit more about your career timeline.
Yeah, well, I've been absolutely exclusively in business exit transition planning since 2010. And I didn't establish my operating entity, Charter BTA, until 2015. I spent, if you want to go way back, I spent 6 years in the United States Navy. And then I got a degree from Portland State in finance and law, and was recruited by Marsh & McLennan, the big multinational, the big global insurance brokerage, which is a great, awesome place, massive resources, best people in the world to learn everything you can possibly fathom about risk and managing risk, which is what it's all about. Being in business, being in life, it's a lot about managing risk. Then I was recruited. I spent 10 years there at Marsh. I spent a year in London working in Lloyd's. So I really got an MBA in the insurance and risk management world, and then was enticed into a local where I had more opportunity for equity and to a little more control of my own destiny. And I did my first business transition case with my largest client in this regional insurance brokerage. I was a bit surprised. His fondest desire was to have his son succeed him as CEO, and he asked me. He wanted me to put it together and lead the charge. And why me? But we were good friends. We communicated well. There was good chemistry and everything, and a high level of trust. And it turned out to be the most satisfying, intriguing, fun, just a really more enjoyable, there was bigger payoff in it than anything I'd ever done.
I can really relate to that because, when I started doing exit planning about 18 years ago, I just found it so personally satisfying and intellectually stimulating, trying to put this puzzle together of not only businesses and people, personalities and opportunities and strategy, et cetera. I mean, is that similar to how you felt?
Oh yeah, no, it's very holistic and complete, and it's creative, and you're joined at the hip with the owner, the guy who founded and grew and put his blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. And it's just it's very holistic. It's very complete. And when you finish, you get it done. If there is such a thing as finish, it's the sense of accomplishment, if you do it right, is, there's nothing like it.
Yeah. It's I mean, think about when, I'm sure you've experienced as well, and listen to all our listeners out there, right? I mean, it's not that every engagement that us as exit planners work on turns out successfully. But when it does, and your clients say, "Hey, Steve, we couldn't have done this without you," or "I'm so thankful that we worked with you and you helped us, navigate, what can be a pretty bumpy and curvy road at times." It is very, very satisfying, and you feel very grateful for the opportunity to have made a positive impact, eh?
Absolutely. And once I did that, it's like, okay, what I've been doing for the last 13, 14 years is boring by comparison.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, and it wasn't, it wasn't what I had envisioned when I was studying, getting my degree. It was like, I didn't know I was going to end up in the insurance world. Very few people do know that, but that's kind of the way it works in an industry. But then, and so this was far more right up my alley. It's a lot more entrepreneurial. I was raised by a serial entrepreneur, so
wow.
I kind of have some of that in my blood anyway.
Yeah.
So,
let's take us back. You were raised by an entrepreneur, and so you're a certified exit planning advisor. You're a chartered financial consultant, certified property and casualty underwriter. You're also the owner of Charter BTA, and you're the founding member of the BTA Circle, which is an organization of like-minded professionals that seeks to guide business owners through the perils of transitioning their ownership and management, enhancing the value along the way. And you've been doing this for 35 years, right? You have a BA in finance and law from Portland State University, but are you saying you're the son of an entrepreneur?
yeah, I am. Yeah.
What did your folks do when you were younger?
Well, my dad was a livestock auctioneer and a cattle rancher, and then he owned enterprises, just side ventures that he was constantly doing. I mean,
kind of a bit of a dabbler, huh?
A bit of a dabbler. Well, he had 8 kids, so it was like he had to keep the cash flow machine cranked up as much as he could, and he was just good at making deals and dealing with people, and he's just a smart guy, and I learned a lot from him.
You say he's much more street smart than academic smart?
Oh yeah, 8th grade education.
Wow.
He grew up on a Nebraska farm, homestead.
Probably a PhD in interpersonal communications, huh?
Yeah, he was. In that era, he was kind of a John Wayne knockoff.
Yeah. So, yeah, like you, I'm also a certified exit planning advisor. And the essence of Finish Big is the podcast is based, as you know, as you and I become friends. I mean, it's based on the elements of Bo Burlingham's great business book, Finish Big: How Great Entrepreneurs Exit Their Business on Top. And it really talks about what a great process looks like, what positive outcomes can happen, and sometimes even with the best planning, and certainly with no planning at all, the likelihood of a bad outcome. And you pursued your certified exit planning advisor certification through the Exit Planning Institute, which, by the way, is based here in the greater Cleveland area where I reside. How long have you been a CEPA, and what prompted you to kind of pursue that designation?
Just I had a little extra time, downtime during the COVID wet blanket to get into the CEPA. It had been on my radar for some time. I was always too busy to do it, and then I actually got it in 22, in the middle of 22. So it's not been that long.
Yeah.
But what it's done is it's kind of the gold standard. It's not the easiest thing to get into. So they do have a reasonable barrier to entry. It's kind of an MBA program. So you have to come to the table with some experience and knowledge, or the course is not going to mean anything to you. Yeah. So, and it exposed me to probably, some of the best in the business, to a whole bunch of additional resources. You mentioned I founded the BTA Circle January 9th, 2015, and we've been going ever since then. And it's just, it's a group of best in the business, of very accomplished other professionals that you need, tax, legal, finance, banking, sales, operations, professionals in that field. So it's kind of the same thing. So here I am, single shingle professional, doing really critical transition work, holding myself out as an expert and a consultant in this arcane arena.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't get this done. You absolutely can't do this work without a CPA, attorney, probably a banker, insurance, and these other you can't do it on your own. I've been, working in this business community for decades, and
Mm-hmm.
know a lot of people, been very involved in the community, all that. So it was not that hard to put that together. But so the Exit Planning Institute kind of offered me the same thing, except expanded.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah. Let me just kind of pause there for a second, Steve. It's interesting. I just learned something about you. Another is I too went through the CEPA course during COVID. I was actually the first class of virtual. And I said, just like you, I mean, when the world was kind of shut down, I said, well, heck, I've been meaning to do this. I'm kind of locked in here like a caged bull. And boy, hats off to Scott and Chris Snyder. The program that they developed, the course syllabus and how it touched on accounting, tax, legal, capital markets, financial planning, estate planning. I was like, this is really, really good stuff. And I thoroughly enjoyed it, passed the exam. And it's something I'm like you, I'm sure you're very proud of, right? It kind of sets you apart in the industry for sure.
Yeah, I think it's the certification and the credential is one thing, but the exposure and mixing it up with and having access to a bunch of other people who are doing the same thing that's where the real value comes.
Yeah.
And I just want to hasten to add here that by the Exit Planning Institute's own admission and statistics, it's a minority of certificates who actually roll up their sleeves and do the whole work.
Yeah, amen. And
there's a whole bunch of them that have the designation, but not everybody actually does it.
Yeah, well, I mean, amen, brother, because last I spoke with Scott Snyder, he said, who's president of the Exit Planning Institute, they've now got over 5,500 graduates, and they estimate about 100 have actually worked with a client. And like you in Lake Oswego and us here in Northeast Ohio, we worked with 100 clients. So, and I know this industry, when I was a young man and I got started, if you are extremely active, your vertical learning curve is dead straight up and you can learn a lot in a short period of time. So let's maybe just kind of switch lanes here for a minute. And our guest today is Steve Hopkins with Charter BTA up in Lake Oswego, Oregon. Talk to us, as I was preparing for the show last evening, what's the origin of the name Charter BTA?
Well, Business Transition Advisors, the BTA part of it, I wanted that. And there's an ESOP planning company that's very, very good, by the way. And they are Business Transition Advisors, BTA. So all that was gone. And so it's like, okay, being an old sailor in the cartography metaphor, it's finding your way, it's mapping. And my son came up with my logo, which is a sextant. And so it's like, let's find our way, It's guidance, it's advice and guidance and a sailor and mariner metaphor.
Hi, this is Mark Dorman. Sorry for the interruption. I know you're listening to the Finish Big podcast, and I'm excited to have you here. If in the event you have any questions, please head over to www.succession.plus/US, and where you can find out how to reach me. I'd love to hear from you. And now back to the show. Gotcha. Yeah, okay. You are active, and you and I have become fast friends, and I think it's a bit of a coastal or Midwest and Northwest, Pacific Northwest Mutual Admiration Society here. How many engagements do you think business owners you've worked with? That's one question. What kind of a process do you take them through And then I want to just get to kind of the advice that you and I probably, what would you give what advice would you give to business owners? So let's start there. How many engagements do you think that you've actually worked on over, the last 15 years?
Oh, well, I try and keep track of that and write success stories. But that's another one more thing.
Yeah.
So I've done just dozens, and I would say it's above 50, but I haven't done 100.
Uh-huh.
I don't, I wish I should have an exact count, but
and tell us about the Lake Oswego area. I mean, I picture pristine lakes, mountains, beautiful forestry, but talk to us about the business climate in the Pacific Northwest and your scope or your geographic reach, if you will, for Charter BTA.
Well, so I'm pretty much the West Coast, and Lake Oswego is a Portland suburb. It's part of Portland metropolitan, and but we live here because it's kind of the affluent suburb with the best school district in the state, and our 3 kids all graduated. It's like prep schools, and so that worked out. That's why we're here in Lake Oswego. But yeah, if we draw a big circle, Portland metropolitan area is, I don't have to go that far to stay completely busy. But I do have clients down the valley, Salem, and then depending on my referral sources. So one of my when I was at an LPL financial advisor, one of my partners has introduced me. We opened a case in California. I do have clients in Washington. I've done Idaho. So it's regional Pacific Northwest. But there's so much to do that I do go across the mountains to the Central Oregon, Bend, Prineville area. And I've done that, but I don't have to. Being lazy, efficient, close to home, I stay really busy with a smaller geography.
Yes.
But now so recently, as a function of getting involved with the Exit Planning Institute and going to their summit, I discovered Capitalize. And then the same people who were attracted to Capitalize have the Legacy Advisors Network, which is a real find. So my geography is expanding as a result of that. I had an executive assistant when I had my LPL practice. I hadn't seen her for years. I was in a coffee shop, met her, and she's available. It's like, wow, God's at work, because
yeah, definitely.
Because I don't have to train her. I know her. I know what her capabilities are. All that. It's just boom, plug, let's go. Yeah. So I'm just poised. It's kind of like this egg is about ready to hatch.
Yeah. So let's talk about Capitalize. You and I are both Capitalize users. We know Craig West, the creator of Capitalize, Nick Foster, the CEO, Sam Walters, Zach Broyles. Happy holidays to all of you guys if you're listening. But Capitalize has been a game changer for our firm here in Cleveland. Certainly the best, without question, process for valuing, showing value potential, sharing an ROI on why an exit planning engagement is so critically important to a business. You would agree with those statements?
Absolutely. Craig West has really knocked it out of the park. So when I narrowed my focus that I'm only doing exit planning, the first thing, okay, I've got to have a process. I've got to have a system. And I had always, as a financial advisor, estate planner, business planner, so on, had always had kind of this milestones process with, 5 stages, just like Craig's did. So I had a process, but it was all on Excel spreadsheets and Word and PowerPoint and all. And every time I had to pull it together, had to go outside for this and out. So anyway, and I've kicked all the tires and subscribed to, written checks to the other, because I discovered, well, I'm not the first one who's invented this system. There are others, and they've done it better than I have. So I've tried them all. But then Capitalize And the capitalized system is so, I mean, it's so far ahead of the pack
No
that
question.
we can't see their taillights if you're if you're back there with some of the others. So I can't speak highly enough of the experience and the integrity of the system, and of
Well, I think that
incorporating
I would
other
add to that
advisors.
as colleagues, is the credibility of the system. Just in the last month here in Cleveland, I was with the president of Houlihan Capital, Andy Smith. They're based out of Chicago, but they have a Cleveland office. I was with the founder of Carlton McKenna, another investment bank, both Houlihan Capital and Paul Carlton, my good friend, who's 50 years in the investment banking business, literally. He's in his mid-70s. When I showed them the Business Insights report, they were like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. And you're talking about, typically, there's always been a bit of a professional friction between an exit planner and an investment banker, because they want to do deals and they think that you're in the way to slow them down. And now there's, they're saying, look, there's so many businesses that need this, and they need this kind of pre-sale prep. Have you experienced anything similar in your marketplace?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. So everybody, if you go to, and I won't name their names, but I'm talking about the other providers of these systems.
Yep.
And everybody produces a report, and there's a lot of boilerplate fluff. The capitalized report, the Business Insights report, it's boom. Every page is like, okay, here's the picture, the data, the graph, here's what matters, and there's very little verbiage. It's all
the benchmarking, right? It's very concise, very precise. And when you show it to investment banking, seasoned investment banking professionals, they really say, hey, you've really got something here, Mark. This is not just an arrow in your quiver. This is a missile, so to speak, right?
Oh yeah. No, how many actually have a sustainable growth rate? Well, I deal with a lot of contractors, in capital intensive. So,
yeah.
And they're always the worst thing. Their worst enemy is growing too fast.
Mm-hmm.
They like to buy iron. They have to, but you have to do it. You have to stay within the white lines, because if your sustainable growth rate is 20%, and you're growing, so I'm growing, I can grow at 50%. No, you can't, because you'll be bankrupt.
Exactly.
So that kind of stuff, that kind of analysis is there. It's plain. It's very easily to explain. I don't know. I haven't seen a break-even analysis like what's in the capitalized report in a long time. I don't know, since I was in business school. No. I'm telling you. And so, and then that valuation thing, man, the valuation engine inside there, and using IBIS data, it's all, everything's good.
Yep, it's very really impressive. Is. So tell us about one of your recent success stories at Charter BTA, if you will. Obviously, without disclosing any names or anything like that, but walk us through maybe a recent success story.
Okay, which one? Do I go with the old guy or the young gal? I mean, okay. So ideal client profile is typically going to be a boomer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to give the wrong impression that that's all I do is work, because my best ones are the younger people. So I had a concrete contractor, 40 years in the business, took him through succession. We did a installment deal to an inside guy, 5 years with a 15% growth rate. They stuck to their numbers, and at the end of 5 years, he owned half the company. Then SBA balloon payment for the second half of the company. So that was a really good success story. So then, but he has a young buddy who's also in the construction business, and he said, hey, you need to talk to my guy. So, talk to Hopkins. So I get together with this guy. He's 42 years old, best friend. He is high school buddy, best friends. These guys are they're contractors. They grew up running equipment and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have the B school insights and education on how to run a business, but they know how to work hard and get business and everything.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
So they're 50-50 partners. And the guy that I'm talking to is clearly the guiding light, knows where he's going, wants to take the business. His partner, equally owned and equally yoked and everything, but he also owns a couple fishing boats up in Alaska. And so June, July, it's like, this is not working. So I sat him down and said, look, you know where you're going, and you need to buy out your partner. And he was just like,
yeah.
My best friend. I said, look, if we do this right, you'll be even better friends. Well, I don't know. So we'll bring him to the table. I'll facilitate. And then, so long story, he did make the buyout, and he did grow too fast. I mean, that was our next big challenge was this, buying equipment and trucks and he had the business, but it was just what I just alluded to on sustainable growth rate. He got out over his skis, and it's like I had to really, just collar him and bring him, get his feet back on the ground to keep him going. But that kind of, he's still, so that's an ongoing engagement. Who knows? He's not going to exit. He's not going to transition for some time, but he's because of our work together, he's ready to at any time. Otherwise he wouldn't be. He might have driven his dump truck into the side of the mountain. I don't know.
Yeah. It's, I mean, how many advisors, first of all, would tell their clients you can't grow that fast, right? Because you're going to, spend yourself into oblivion. And it's almost, you work with these entrepreneurs as we look to wrap up this show, Steve. But sometimes I've always feel that the vision is you're trying to break a wild horse, right? I mean, these men and women are just so full of energy and drive and vision. But to your point, you got to kind of hold on tight to the bridles and keep them between the white lines and maximize and create the most efficient and effective business as possible. I think you and I'm sure, share that almost a duty to help small business owners. There's 80% of the jobs are created by small businesses. Most of the people don't know that listening to the
80
show,
or 90.
perhaps.
Yep.
Yeah, it's, depending, it's 80, 85. And the majority of those are owned by boomers, not all, but exit planning is just good business planning. That's something we certainly share. So this has been great. It's been great to get to know you over the last year, Steve. And thank you for appearing on Finish Big. Tell the audience how they would get a hold of you. So if you're listening in the Pacific Northwest or Northern California, how do we get a hold of Charter BTA?
Well, I do have a website. It's a work in progress. I think they all are. But charterbta.com, charterbta.com, or 503-200-4720.
Okay. And you're also on LinkedIn at Steve Hopkins, right?
Yes.
Yep,
and Charter BTA has a LinkedIn page.
Gotcha. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been your host, Mark Dorman. My guest today has been Steve Hopkins, Lake Oswego, Oregon, outside of the Portland area. He is president and founder of Charter BTA and also has a terrific group of professionals up in that marketplace. So hats off to hopefully your BTA circle folks will be listening to this show. Until we meet again, this will be our last show before the Christmas break. I want to wish you and yours a very happy holiday season, and Merry Christmas to one and all. Happy Hanukkah to all my friends out there. Steve, thanks for being on the show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Great. Until we meet again, here's to Finishing Big, folks. Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed listening to Finish Big, the podcast with Mark Dorman, sponsored by Succession Plus. Don't forget to click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Visit our website at www.succession.plus/US or give us a call at 330-350-5410. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guests and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Succession Plus. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional tax or legal advice. Always seek the advice of your legal or tax professionals with any questions you may have regarding your specific situation.